Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello everybody, my name is Minh and I'm your host for today from NDIS Property Australia here today on the Gold Coast. Having a 3-day break from the show day in Brisbane. You're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today's exciting topic is Kirsty Bonner from Adelaide, who works for Australian Support and who is a support coordinator. But I'm not inviting Kirsty on as a support coordinator. I'm inviting her on to talk about her property investing journey in the SDA space. So Kirsty, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Wonderful. You know, when I looked back at our communication, and I think you and I were on a Facebook forum about 7-8 months ago or so, and then you reached out to me again many months later, and I thought, wow, here we go. Here's an old chat trail, and you asked me about design, builds, blocks, sites, projects, and so forth, and which is great. I wanted to talk to you about property as an investor from a SDA perspective. Tell me more about who you are and your journey as a property investor or an SDA property investor, whatever you want to talk about, please.
Yeah, sure. So I guess a few years ago, I've sort of always been in business for myself and had different projects or things on the go and run my own businesses, etc. And about 2 years ago, maybe, I decided that now my husband and I were going to move into the developer space. And originally I was just looking at doing small developer projects, you know, maybe 3 houses on a block, you know, looking for your ideal block. I had a mentor here in Adelaide that I was working with, and had, you know, good feasibility sheets to be able to use to make sure your profit margins were big enough to make it worthwhile, accounting for unexpected, you know, unknowns that can come up in the development space, of course. And that's sort of where it first started. And similarly in timing to that, I moved into a support coordination role. So although initially I wasn't looking at the NDIS space in development, I was looking at development period just as a small, you know, I guess one-man band developer, you know, as many people sort of are, but also just drawing on, you know, previous experience in business and life and what have you. As I worked in the support coordination space, as many people in the NDIS space come to realise, as well as being a shortage in property across Australia, period, there is also a shortage in suitable accommodations in the NDIS space. Now, although the original development goal was to effectively be the wholesaler, be the developer where you built not massive projects, like I said, it was maybe split a block into 3 or 4, moving to a goal of being able to do 5 or 6 probably townhouses when money built up that little bit more. I changed over to, and then selling it and kind of making that developer profit and then kind of rinse and repeating, maybe offsetting 1 or 2 happening at a time. It moved quickly over. We had an investment property for a while that was positively geared that we did through the NRAS space, which was the National Rentability Affordability Scheme or whatever it is. So that had been, you know, a tax advantage we'd had for a short period. It actually ended up being, my eyes were opened to the NDIS space and then looking at, well, if there's enough profitability in here, why would we sell them to just make the equity? maybe it is just the next stage of development and investment for us that we look to be able to build in a number of these SDA properties. So I started to investigate the space, the requirements, everything you need to know on my own.
And what challenges have you come across and seen what does work and not work in your view?
Well, I think the biggest thing in the beginning was just the fact that it's a big space. And I have to say, it was sort of April, May 2021 that I was seriously switching over to looking in this space, maybe a month or two earlier. And funnily enough, just in that time, there's so many more sort of bigger companies and businesses sort of doing this. And I was really looking again still from that small developer space. And because put it this way, in my experience, a lot of bigger businesses that are doing it for profit and are doing it for, for business, for numbers, for money. And they may know development, but they don't know the NDIS. So that was an interesting sort of realization because I had some understanding of service agreements and support coordination and different types of housing and what makes something more suitable to another, and wanting to make sure the participants are really being looked after and being matched well, and that was my jam sort of thing. So coming from that headspace into SDA, I think was definitely beneficial. But my initial hurdle, I guess, and roadblock was, this is a big space to make sure I can do it on my own without having some other people, like finding some other professionals that knew bits I didn't know. Like anything in business, you've got to, the stuff you don't know, you've got to find people that either do it or already know it well and be prepared to learn from them and even employ them to do the bits you don't know.
When you say bits and pieces that you don't know, are you referring to construction of the SDA dwellings? Or what?
I'm referring to the whole process from the perspective of, I knew you had SDA providers and you had your SIL providers that provided the day-to-day support, and that you had to build a house that was going to be compliant. But I guess I didn't yet understand how could I be confident in buying a block that was definitely going to be the right block, and how could I know exactly what plans I was going to be putting on it without finding somebody that was going to be able to help me make sure that it was going to be compliant and pass and all of those. So yeah, obviously larger organizations already have all of that mapped out and they've got all of their little JV partnerships or however you look at it. I needed to find some people that knew the things I didn't know so that I could, with confidence, buy my block, know that I could pass compliance, etc. And it was what had me move into thinking, well, I actually wouldn't mind switching gears into becoming the SDA provider and having a few of my own properties. Down the track, maybe I will manage a few other properties of other investors maybe, but my goal was never to be huge. It was always about, again, still just creating a little investment for us for the future. And if it meant that I was able to give back to participants that don't have housing, don't have what they need, be able to build something, it just, it ticked a lot of boxes as far as that whole win-win scenario. Of course, as an investor, you need to make some money to make it worthwhile doing. But I guess a little bit like the NRAS, the NRAS was creating a home for somebody that potentially couldn't afford to even get into the rental market because it gave them a 20% discount on the market value, but the government backed it up a bit in sort of making up that difference. here it's a similar thing. So yeah, I loved what it represented as an investment.
So 2 years on, where are you at?
So today, the excavators hit dirt on our first build. So
Wow.
I bought a block in December. It's taken, the building industry at the moment is insane. But yes, I, had a contract, got plans drawn.
So go back.
Yeah.
We're in Adelaide. How wide, how big's the block? What are your thoughts on the block? Is it a split block? Is it a knockdown rebuild? Is it a new state? What's the background here?
Okay. So my first goal was to build 2 and to be able to find a block that would be big enough for me to be able to do 2 at the same time. They were going to be freestanding houses. I was looking at a platinum level high physical support HPS level house. And I was on the hunt through last year for land. Of course, it's a crazy time in the market period, even for people just wanting to buy and build or buy a house. And months were going by, and I had been advised with the house we were going to build, 3-bedroom with an additional carer's room, each with their own bathrooms, etc., that I needed at least 10-metre wide frontage and at least 37 metres deep to be able to fit the house we were designing onto the block. So that was I needed it as flat as possible. I needed at least 10 metres wide. This was just in my design. Depending on what you're doing, obviously you're looking for different shapes and sizes, but I had to have a guideline as to what I could hunt for, that then I could go back and go, how does this one look? How does this one look? I got to sort of November or so, maybe October, November, and I couldn't find one. And in my head, I kept thinking, you know what? The longer I go that I haven't started, it's lost cost opportunity of money that I haven't got happening because I can't find the right block. So I started actually looking for individual blocks and thought, even if I can just get one started, that's going to be better, and have that underway while I look for a second one. So where I was going to buy something, potentially knock down and whatever, of course, the beauty of finding something, if it's just a block that's cleared, you save time and money from that perspective. So I sort of weighed all that up, and I found a block down south. I knew that there's good demand down south. And so I found a block that was 11 metres wide, about 47 metres deep, and it was about 215,000. Now, as I later found out, that was actually the most expensive block in that tiny new little subdivision. But it was in the range of the guide that I was really sort of looking for. And when I added in the fact I don't have to subdivide, I don't lose time in council in all of that happening, what I gain on one hand, maybe I've paid, because I was actually looking, up to the 200 price. Of course, with stamp duty in South Australia is significant. Mm. It's more than the other states. So that's where I started, with one block in December.
So you paid $215,000 for it, and you say it's a little bit over what it should have been. What were the comparable block prices in the area in this state?
Well, it's interesting because it's actually a developed area that had one strip on one side that had done a release of about 6 blocks, probably 2019, 2020. And then beginning of last year, I think that's roughly when it happened, they did another 7 blocks. So it's literally a fully developed area that had a strip that never got subdivided. And I think the others sold through probably early last year around the 180, 185, 190, 195 mark. Then I saw a block that I applied for. Well, I made inquiries like I had been doing, and every time, under contract. Made inquiries about one, and again, it was under contract. So I was like, okay. And then the next day, the agent got back to me and said, but I've got this other one 3 blocks down that's just fallen through from finance. So I think that one had probably sold in the January, February, March, April, whenever. And as luck would have it, finance had fallen through, so it was suddenly available.
Yep.
Now, I guess that gave them the advantage probably to say, well, it's, 6-9 months later now. We'll whack the price up a bit. We'll see if she'll go for it. I wanted to make sure that I would get it. I had cash in the bank, so I just offered unconditional at the 215. I didn't kind of play around.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep. Good move. So, blocks now acquired, or what are you putting on it now? Specs, designs, category?
So as I said, we're doing a 3-bedroom HPS with 3 en-suites plus a carer's room that's got a toilet and storage cupboard or whatever. And it's good because ultimately the block was bigger than I needed, which means we can have a little bit more outdoor space, have a nice bit of a pergola area out the back. One of the things I had initially not realized was the block actually slopes up a little bit. And although it looked flat from the front, when you go through the process, there was about an extra $15,000 for cutting out and dumping the soil, etc. So that was something I negotiated right off the bat. And it's something where maybe, like for the builder, it was all just put in part of the contract, signed the contract. For people that are maybe looking more distanced or through a larger organisation, then maybe you just sign with that, you go ahead, you whatever, which is fine. But because it was sort of my baby, I guess. And so I was like, well, okay, maybe I can save a bit of money here. So the guy from the building company had said to me, look, that's one bit if you wanted to, you could look at. I didn't want to get into the house itself and go, oh, well, I know an air conditioning guy and I know this guy and I wasn't going over the top, but there was about $15,000 in soil dumping. And I'm like, that's a lot of money. So I put my thinking cap on and reached out and used my connections and contacts and just, communicated. And I found an excavator that could dig out my block, and together we could find somewhere for the soil to go. And it cut about $15,000 off the contract.
Wow.
And he can do my retaining walls at the back. So I ended up getting that done and the retaining walls for about $4,000 or $5,000 less than what the original build contract was. So
good.
It's like I said, it's not that much in the scheme of the whole thing, and it'll all come back. But at the same time, if I can save a bit here and there, that all saves to the bottom line of what you've invested in the beginning as well.
That's great work. Now, any special features about the design of the house, the floor plan, the inclusions?
Well, obviously we furnish the house, etc. It'll have automation and, we've had to, part of the reason the cost was a bit more was being high physical support. We had to dig a little bit deeper than what the other blocks to the side needed to, because you have to have your compliance for the driveway, etc. So it needs to come pretty flat off the road with your 1:40 ratio or 2-degree slope. It'll be beautiful, smooth kind of entry and what have you from the road. It's also nice that it has some nice brand new houses around it, but still in a really great location, really close proximity to lots of amenities and shopping and what have you.
How far are the shops and the bus stops?
5 minutes to the shops. The beach is, 15 minutes away.
Wow.
So it's great from that perspective in regards to, and it allows me to, I want to be able to give them a little bit above and beyond even within the house, like set up a nice barbecue and stuff out the back, and it'll have all the standard Wi-Fi and all that sort of stuff. But if I can make it even more homely and comfortable for them, then that's exciting, because I think they'll appreciate that, and I think it's important to remember that this is their home, and you want them to be excited to live there and happy to do it and to appreciate it. I'm sure they will, but to appreciate it as much as you would if you were living there.
Yes. So how many square meters are the floor plan?
I actually don't know if I know that off the top of my head. I'd have to get back to you on that one and double check my plans.
So 4 bed, 4 bath, 2 car.
Yeah, it's 3. Yeah, it's 3 bedroom. The front room's pretty small, but it's big enough for an office and a bed. Office and a bed and a toilet, so it doesn't have a full ensuite. Whereas the other bedrooms have full ensuites. The bathrooms are about as big as the bedrooms, I think, from me. And a single garage. So it's got a single garage and, plenty of driveway. Yeah, I'd be making up numbers if I tried to even guess. But it's,
A single car garage for HPS would be 1.5 times a normal single garage.
Yes.
Has to be a little bit extra wider, that's all.
Yeah, it is. Yep, that's correct. That's correct.
So with that 11 meter wide frontage, it doesn't surprise me. It's a 1 car garage.
Yes.
So for 4 bed, 4 bath, 1 car. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
So normally in our experience, if you want a 4 bed, 4 bath, 2 car, that's probably a 14 meter to 15 meter wide frontage.
Yeah, that would
because it's one less garage here. It can be thinner,
a bit narrower. Yeah, longer and leaner. I mean, with the changes middle of last year, meant you had to have the bedroom. I think the rooms had to have a little bit extra space, like from the beds to the walls, whatever. So it meant that the building had to be a bit longer, which meant your block had to be that bit bigger and stuff.
In listening to your story, I want to give you some advice, a bit of design advice for the next one.
Yep.
If you are going to do a next one, right?
Yep.
So I reckon the toilet for the carer should have been outside powder room, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have visitors coming over, where do they go? Is there a communal bathroom or toilet? There isn't. They're all en suites at the moment, right? So
yes, although that front room, I guess they can go in there. That's an office extra sort of room.
Yeah, okay.
So I have seen before where they have a room before the front door. There's a door that you can go into that is the carer's bed and toilet or whatever. Yeah.
I recently I was in Sydney last week with a architect designer, and what she does is she actually has the OOA office, a bedroom, and a separate office.
Yes.
Right? She said with mental health these days, you want to separate the whole, and I know most 99% of SDA dwellings, they have the OOA room, and people think that's just the OOA office, right? But no, that will be the OOA bedroom and a separate office.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I find that quite unique. It was like, okay, that's good to separate mindset between work and rest, right? Which is good. You say automation. Are you prepaying and installing all that at completion? Are you?
The automation
comes later.
Will come after. Yes.
Yes. I want to clarify that because the government will fund the automation costs subject to the requirements of the participants individually.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's good to know because I know that, the fellow I'm working with had done automation automatically in the beginning and then had not been doing that. So at the moment, that's not there. But like you said, if the participants don't actually require it, it can be some savings that you end up not investing.
They probably will end up requiring it, and better for the government to pay for that.
True, right? As you do a change of circ or
and then the ceiling hoist.
Yeah, so we've got all provisions in the ceiling and that to be able to do that. So it'll be quick and easy to do.
Yep.
But they could again have that funded through the plan.
And for our listeners to know, when you get a HPS house, you don't actually get ceiling hoist installed at the very start or at completion. You got to wait for the housing provider to lodge the paperwork to the government, the NDIS, to get approval for funding to then get the funding to go out and buy the equipment to install.
Yeah.
And that may be automation for blinds and everything, automation in the house, and also the hoist and everything. Anything that needs to be done for the participants can be done with government funding after completion.
Yeah, much the same as a participant at their own home. If they moved into a place or got to a point with their disability they needed that, then we put in a change of circumstance as a support coordinator. We request we get evidence based on, allied health professionals' advice stating that they need that, and then we apply for it, get it approved, and then we have it installed. And
Good. My next question is, have you engaged a housing provider?
I have contact with a number of SIL providers here, and I have gone through my audit process to be the SDA provider.
Good.
So I have been approved, and that's been put forward to the NDIS with provisional approval, which obviously can't be finalised until I actually have a house and participants that are in there. So, yeah.
So when did you lodge your paperwork for the housing provider license?
I'm trying to think. I did my first audit. It wasn't that long from lodging the paperwork to maybe March, April. Mm-hmm. And then when I was away, at Easter, and it was about the 15th of May that I did my stage 1 audit, which is my desktop audit. But I had engaged a consultancy firm in February, March, to make sure I had all of my, processes and procedures and forms and documentation and what have you correct in time.
So May 15 was your final audit?
Was my first audit, and then my second audit was or maybe that was the second one. I'm trying to remember now. Yeah, no, maybe I had the first audit end of April, and then the second one was a few weeks later.
Okay. Look, I'm asking these questions to time everything because I lodged my one back in May 2021.
Yeah.
And now here we are in September, August, a year and 3 months later, still not 3 yet. So your timeline, it may take you a year and 5 months for all I know, right? But to be licensed as a SDA housing provider. But your house will be built by 10 months, I assume?
The builder's saying five months from the laying of the slab.
Which is now.
So today they're digging out. So I've got a spreadsheet made out for these different places the dirt's going for my digger. And so I'm hoping that we'll have a slab, in the next 4 weeks. I don't know exactly a date for that yet because obviously they need me to do this section before they'll then dig out the foundation and lay the slab. So we're August. So January, February.
Okay, so now the question is this: government risk. So you're saying 5 months to completion from slab, which is we're talking maybe December, right? But the license for the SDA housing license for yourself would be probably September next year. So you're not going to be a housing provider in the interim there. How are you going to overcome the whole need a housing provider to lodge the house into the portal to be fully compliant, and then finding participants and then managing it if you're not how's it going to work?
I'm currently working with a SIL provider, and I have 2 participants waiting for this house.
Good.
This has already been delayed. We were hoping to have the house ready by August, September, so it's already been delayed. Yes. So if I get to a point of the house being completed and I have my participants who have been waiting to go in, I'll raise, I'll go to the NDIS and raise the point of the fact that these have been waiting. They are ready to move in. They need the house. They have SDA approval, etc.
Have you confirmed what the SDA funding approval is for these individuals?
Yes, I don't have their individual because the SIL provider has that part. I haven't finalised that part yet.
So they are HPS funded 1 to 3?
Yeah.
Or 3 to 1?
Yeah.
1 to 3,
Yeah.
yes.
That's right.
Mm.
So, and that's what the auditor had said to me. Basically we'll do all this part and put that in. And then we'll just keep escalating it if we need to get to a point of having a house. Because once you've got a house and people that are in there and have funding, there's no reason for them to not sort of go, okay, yeah, we need to look at doing what needs to be done for these guys to be able to get in there.
Are these 2 HPS participants okay with a third person sharing?
Yes, they are. But
Wonderful.
We'll just have to match that third person to those 2.
Yeah. And did you source the block after you found the participants, or other way around?
No, other way around. I had the block first.
Okay.
Yeah, but then I had the participants a couple of months into having the block, which just had us putting more pressure onto the builder to try and get council and all that sort of stuff sort of through quicker. And then about 3 weeks ago, I bought another house that's on about 1,000, just under 1,000 square meters, which has a significant tree on there. So I've had an arborist report done on that. We don't settle on that till the 16th of September. But I'm putting in for land division approval with that report, hopefully tomorrow, so that we can try and get pre-approval on the subdivision before we actually settle on the block.
Wow. So subdivision of 1,000 square meter block will be 500 square meters. So you'll be doing what kind of builds on these 2 blocks?
We'll probably do HPS again, even if they don't, fill all with HPS participants. It'll just be about compatibility of the participants. But it is able to take that, obviously. I was just going to do 1, which is what ended up having our conversation in the beginning. I was just going to do 1 and sell the other block, because it was sort of my second house. That was the goal sort of thing. But in conjunction with the builder, it does look like we are able to fit 2 on the 2 different blocks. So we may well go ahead with the 2. And that'll, again, be further delayed. It might take us till January, February before I don't know, titles, we don't settle till mid-September. It takes 3 or 4, 5 months to get the titles. And so I can't really start building contractual stuff on those until, I've got titles. I can't start a building contract until I've got titles on the blocks. So those ones are a little bit more delayed. But that may time in well, because if the other one is finished and starts producing also, then you've at least got 1 proven system, with the other 2 then looking to be built. And, if they're finished by the end of next year, maybe that could time in well.
Exactly. I think once people see that the lender, so your lender sees the income coming in, it's fully tenanted, and it's working well, then lenders will be more open to giving more money
to allow it to happen.
Allow more, portfolio. So what's your goal? What's your long-term goal? Is it just buy, build, and hold? Do you see yourself flicking on and selling a little profit after they're tenanted? What's your goal here?
It's interesting, because in the beginning, my husband was, we could build 3 or 4 and sell 1 or 2 and this and that. And then I just kept coming back to but if it's like a bit of a goose, right, that's laying kind of a golden egg. It seems it's building up in equity anyway. I think given the aged care crisis we have in Australia and the need for more, we need more elderly people to be able to stay in a home. So there's never going to be a lack of demand, although it's a niche demand and it's a niche market. But, the house could easily be purchased in 15 or 20 years by an elderly couple that want to stay at home, that have the ability to have supports come to their house. So, and because like the investment we had before was just a townhouse, so you're very limited in your land, you're attached to other its potential growth longer term was no good. These ones, they're on freehold land. Land is always where the money is. And this enables us to do something valuable with the land. But, the house itself will always be valuable and the equity will be there, which is good. My goal is not, like I said before, not to be anything too huge or ridiculous. I think we've just reset up a self-managed super fund. I would like to maybe buy one and build one in the self-managed super fund. And if we can have, at this stage, 3 outside and 1 in the super fund, that can help building the super fund. It can help for us. And maybe I can, help my sister to get one and be her SDA provider. Maybe I can, as an SDA provider, run a couple of other houses as well and utilize, I love people, I love communication, I love connection, I love helping and supporting. So being able to work with SIL providers or to ultimately work for the participants and match that up. But I'm not trying to buy myself a 40-hour-a-week job.
Yes, I know.
I don't want 20 staff and this massive big empire of an SDA business, that's not the goal. The goal is help some people set up our future in a meaningful way.
I think it's great what you're doing there in your community there in Adelaide. Just look after yourself first. Look after the participants in the houses that you're going to own. Help a handful of other people, investors who may need some help with some advice, consultancy-wise.
Yeah.
And just keep to your lane and do what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Kirsty, that's all I can say. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
if you could turn back the clock, right? How would you change your 2-year journey? What would you change? I already think I know the answer, but what would you change if you could go back and start again?
I was going to say maybe I'd buy that first block sooner, but that's all there. That's all hindsight. That's all the market. That's all whatever. One thing I would change is there was a house that I made I applied for that was in the same sort of location that my block is, same suburb. The offer that I put in an offer of 312 and I could have built 2 on it. And I think it sold for about 350, which was kind of overpriced and ridiculous at the time. Maybe I would have bought a bit more for that one because that would have bought me another 6 months. And, but again, you don't know. You have to always have your feasibility and your numbers and you have to work with what you've got and sort of stick to it. And then you might change your mind and, change your goals. Even this second one that we're doing, the land will end up being because there's a bit to clear off the block. There's a lot of trees and subdivision costs, of course, etc. The house I bought for $490, but it'll be 2 blocks. But overall, they'll still end up, mid to high 200s cost wholesale to me. But they're in an even better location and an even better, 3 houses to a dead-end street with a massive oval of a super school. So the land value in there is actually around the 330 to 350 per block. So I've built in equity straight away to those. So even though the overall cost is going to be greater, I can still see benefit in investing a bit more in the land. So I'm comfortable with that. I don't know if there's much I could change because one thing has to lead you to the other. And you can only ever make a decision based on the information you know at that time. Exactly.
I always say to everyone, never have regrets. Everything happens for a reason, right? And don't dwell on the past. Just keep on moving forwards.
Yeah.
You can only do what you can with the facts and figures in front of you.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you mentioned the word feasibility. So my last question to you is this. Your first purchase here with these 2 participants from the SIL provider, assuming only 2 HPSs in this house, what is your gross yield and your net yield going to be based off the land and build acquisitions and other costs?
Oh, I haven't done a final percentage on. I haven't sussed out yet rent-wise how much I'll keep and how much I'll maybe hand on to SIL for food or other things. And
Oh, forget that. Just simply the SDA income, RRC, for those two people, which, again, you don't know what the numbers are. Again,
no, but say they're around the 40 each. So there's about 80 of SDA for HPS.
I actually reckon it'll be higher than that. Plus RRC. So the 10,000 RRC, it's $100,000.
Yeah, they may be about 50, 52 each, 54, whatever.
Minus rates, insurance.
Internet.
You're the SDA income provider. You're the SDA provider anyway. So
and I'm the SDA provider, so I keep the 15%, whatever, of the SDA provider.
So really looking about $90,000, 88, 89, 90 grand net-ish on your purchase price.
Yeah, total in will be minus automation about 550.
Yeah. So 90 divided by 550 is your net income here.
Yep.
That works out to be 90 divided by 550. Does that include stamp duty?
Yep.
That's a 16% net income after costs based off 2 participants only.
Yep.
That's good. It's good.
Yep.
Very good. Yeah.
And
so I think from a conservative point of view, for your next project, assume 1 HPS, 1 FA, and 1 IL got kind of participant mix for yourself.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a great learning curve. I think the biggest thing people need I don't know whether having balls is the right way to say it, but you have to be prepared to do it, like to ask all the questions, reach out, find the people that will help and answer some questions, find out what you don't know, find out what people believe you need to know, find out, because there are people that will help you or that will answer questions. In the beginning, it was like, oh, how do I ask an SDA provider how to be an SDA provider? Like, would they want to tell me that? So, yeah, but just have to find out what you need to know, go to the bank, find out what you can do funding-wise, release some equity and use that. Like, why not use the bank's money or the funding you've got in your property, in your own home, to be able to then use the bank's money to be able to generate income? Like, that's the only way you can create – you can't save your way to wealth or to, to your retirement. You just can't do it.
Exactly. I think the path you're on at the moment, Kirsty, is wonderful. Trying to get your 2 or 3 outside super, doing 1 inside super. I think once you've paid down your mortgages,
that's right.
As much cash as you can. Put some more into superannuation because your goal should be to buy a second one in superannuation at some point in the future as well.
Yes, that's right. And that'll be, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it and judge it based on, having the 2, having the 3, then having the super, like making sure there is the demand for it, making sure I know, maybe even making sure I've got the participants ready to go,
Yes.
Yeah. Because then you can, again, make an informed decision.
Kirsty, your story is wonderful. I hope to talk to you in maybe 6 months down the track to see how you went with your first construction.
Yeah.
We'd love to hear more about your journey. I thank you so much for your time and efforts today on the episode here, because your story is going to be able to help other investors think outside the box.
Yeah.
And sourcing their own land, talking to their own builder, doing their own designs. Because the whole goal of our podcast show here is just to bring awareness to the community. Just to say to people, hey, there's an SDA market here in the property sector. It may not be for you, but if it is for you, these are the challenges here. The people you should seek to talk to, SDA assessors, housing providers, SIL providers, builders, and whatnot, just to make your life, at the end of the day, it is a social impact everyone's doing. Yes, the community, but it is your wealth that you're creating for yourself long term, and it's here in front of us as the NDIS market for property for SDA. Yeah. And you're one of the pioneers in Adelaide, I'm sure, right? And I hopefully we'll see more of your success in the coming few years with your 2, 3, 4, 5 properties in SDA in long term.
Yeah, that'd be great. And it's about building a team around you. Build a team around you that know their bit. And and just do it.
Kirsty Bonner, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Bye bye.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.